Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Best of the Rest. Normally, this is a podcast where we take a second look at comic book movies that were poorly received upon release, but challenge ourselves to only talk about the positives, what we like, what actually works in those movies. This episode, however, we're talking about a movie that so far has been pretty well received. We're talking all about The Batman, the new movie in theaters now, starring Robert Pattinson in the lead role. We're still going to be positive, still hitting all the highlights, our favorite scenes, giving out some Mark Strong awards. Andrew, are you ready to talk Batman?
I am absolutely ready to talk Batman.
I am ready to talk Batman every day of my life. But today, it's going to be focused very specifically on this new movie. And we should say up front, of course, we're going to spoil it. We're going to talk about all the scenes, all the best scenes, the plot, the ending, any twists and turns. So if you have not seen this movie, pause this podcast, go to the theaters, go check it out. And when you get out 4 hours later, you can come and play this podcast on the way home. So
download the episode, keep it nearby, and then when you're on the drive home, then you can listen to it. And then you can see if you agree with what we're going to say.
Absolutely. You've been warned.
Or if you don't care about spoilers. Like, if you're just here to hear somebody's take on this movie and you're not worried about spoilers, then also, by all means, continue to listen.
Can you believe they revealed Riddler was Clayface the entire time at the end of the movie? I did not see that coming.
I didn't see it coming. That was, thank Christ that didn't happen.
On one hand, I would love it because that'd be the most comic booky nonsense ever.
Right, it would.
But no, that would have been horrible.
That would have been so strange.
Yeah, that didn't actually happen. Let's talk about the things that did happen, Andrew. Before we get to that, though, let's lay a little bit of groundwork here. Going into this movie, me personally, and I should say I just saw the movie. I've been home for about an hour from the theater, so it's all very fresh. You saw it yesterday as of this recording, yeah?
Yes.
So still pretty fresh.
Last night. Yeah, so last night, first screenings last night, or I know there were some early screenings before that, but yeah, went in last night, had a little bit of time to sit with it, but yeah.
Now, we talked a lot about this movie before it came out. Not really about the movie that we hadn't seen, but sort of the fandom around it and expectations and the direction like this movie was going. And, you know, we are a hashtag positivity podcast, but just to be honest, going in, I think it's safe to say I wasn't hyped for this movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use those words. I was excited to see it. I love seeing Batman, and I thought it'd be good. I have a lot of faith in the director. But the direction it looked like Batman was going, I can't say that I was chomping at the bit to see it. And I'll say now, just so we're not on a total downer, I very much enjoyed this movie. It far exceeded my expectations.
Oh, yeah.
But Andrew, going into the movie, were you about the same boat there?
Yeah, it just and this isn't meant really as a shot, but watching all the kind of marketing for the film, the trailers and everything, it just felt like this movie was kind of falling into a niche that I just didn't have a lot of interest in. The trailers looked super dark, super violent. Like it and, you know, I'm not saying Batman can't be those things. I know there were a lot of people that were hyped for it, but I just was kind of beyond that with what I wanted out of Batman at this point. And so I like Matt Reeves. I like Matt Reeves a lot. I don't know if he's made a bad movie. I've enjoyed a lot of ways. So I'd never had to really doubt that the movie was probably going to be good. I just wasn't really, it just didn't feel like a thing that I was really wanting to see at this point. But yeah, went in and was kind of blown away, like genuinely. Like what I thought the movie was going to be didn't really turn out to be the case. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But overall, like I left and I was just like, I'm down for more of this.
Yeah, man, it is. it's so good. It's undeniable is what I was thinking. Very early on in this movie, I turned the corner and I was like, wait, this is kind of awesome. I like the direction they're going here. And you're right. It's not really what I expected because, like, we don't need to talk about all the different variations of Batman, but, like, you know, the Nolan movies were famous for being like a serious, grounded take on Batman. And then we had the Zack Snyder movies afterwards, which were a little bit darker, a little bit grimier. Batman's a little bit more violent, and, you know, killing people, using guns, etc. And then we got the trailers for this movie where it looked like possibly even grittier, even darker. And a serious, dark, gritty Batman is fine. I love Batman. I love all things Batman, and that is certainly a natural place to take the character, and a place has gone many times. But there's so many other things you can do with Batman, and it kind of felt like Hollywood has just been circling. You know, you got like a giant dartboard, right? And they're just hitting the same mark over and over again, where you can hit that dartboard anywhere and you're scoring points. I'm losing the analogy, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's other ways. There's other ways to do the character.
They keep going back to the same formula. They keep going back to the idea that Batman is this dark, violent character. And that was honestly something that hit my head. That was, to me, like the Snyder movies, regardless of how you feel about them, they were trying to put Batman into a shared universe with other characters. There was a little bit more comic bookiness to them, just by sheer fact that he was hanging out with Superman and Aquaman and the Flash and stuff. But then when that kind of fizzled, it felt like they just ran right back to like the Nolan formula. They're like, oh, we'll just do the grounded, realistic Batman again, but this time we'll make it darker and grittier and more violent. It's like you said, it's like, okay, like, but we kind of did that. Is this really where we need to go again?
Yeah. And I mean, there was talks that the movie might be rated R, and I'm glad it wasn't, because to me, R doesn't necessarily mean good, even though there are a lot of good R-rated movies. But I don't need Batman saying the F word. I don't mean a lot of blood, but regardless, we can stop talking about the things we feared this movie would be. Right. Talk about what the movie actually is, because what it actually is, Andrew, pretty dang good.
It's pretty good. I like you said, you kind of reach this point, and I was in pretty early just because like you said, there was just this moment where like you kind of like it hits you where you're like, oh wow, this is pretty rad. Like this is kind of cool. And that definitely hit me pretty early in the film. Like I was like maybe less than half an hour in. I was like, all right, I'm in for this. Let's see where this takes us.
Batman's first scene, I think it was for me. But you know what? Before we get to scenes, let's talk about this cast, because there is a phenomenal cast in this movie, all putting in great performances. We both have a pick for a Mark Strong Award. Of course, we give the Mark Strong Award to someone that goes so far above and beyond with their performance, they elevate the quality of the entire film. And boy, it is hard to pick one because there's a lot to choose from, but I think I have my pick. But Andrew, go ahead and kick us off. Who gets your Mark Strong Award for The Batman?
This may be seen as a strange pick by some people, but I'm going with my boy Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot / the Penguin.
That's an excellent pick, but I gotta ask, are you sure that's Colin Farrell? Because there is not
everything says it is.
Second. There's not a second of this movie where I was like, oh yeah, I can see it or I can hear it. Not at all. He is lost in his character.
There is zero indications. Some of the only things you've seen that indicated is that like Colin Farrell has like given interviews about playing the Penguin, and he talked about like he'd wear the prosthetics into Starbucks, and people just had no idea who he was
because how could you? It's crazy.
It's insane. But like, so he's not like a massive part of this film, which is why I feel like this is a little bit of a cop out. But he's a foundational character. He's got some pretty good scenes. He's a big part of the big chase scene. But just again, like Colin Farrell is, I mean, he's great. There's very few things I watch Colin Farrell in where at the end I'm like, well, I almost always enjoy watching him, especially when he's really in like an ensemble that he works well in, like something like The Gentleman. I love The Gentleman. He's a bit character in that too, probably a similar screen time amount to what he's got here, and he's just perfect in that movie. And here, it's like if somebody had told me, "Hey, let's do Colin Farrell as the Penguin," I would have been like, "All right, all right, I'll follow you on this journey," but I'm not really. I wouldn't have been, I would have never assumed or picked Colin Farrell to play the Penguin of all people. The dude's like jacked and can be super ripped, but like here he's got mannerisms, he's got the look, he's got all the penguinisms. He's not quite as gross as Danny DeVito's Penguin, but they were playing that a little bit more realistic, or a little more what's that, savage with him. But here you've got that kind of proto kingpin he is. Like, obviously, once the crime families start falling, he's going to rise up. And the movie definitely hints at that with the stuff that's going on, that Penguin's going to make some power plays. But he's awesome. He's got a cool, he's got the voice, he's got the look, he's got the right mix of like sort of being intimidating, but also still kind of being like ridiculous, because the Penguin's still kind of supposed to be a little bit ridiculous at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's a great balance. And
almost kind of like cowardly, like he talks a big game, but he's not the one stepping up on the front line.
Right, exactly. So I can only hope we got more of this guy. I think they said there was actually a Penguin-centric thing they were working on with him. And so I can only hope that they cut the deal for that if they're going to really do it. I don't know quite how that would work. I don't know if a Penguin series is something I'm really interested in watching. Yeah. But with Colin Farrell as the guy, I can't necessarily say I'd be against it either. So, but yeah, he's getting my pick for Mark Strong.
I mean, that's a great pick, because this performance it's crazy. I mean, I was literally looking like at his hands. I'm like, can I recognize Colin Farrell's hands? As if I know this man's distinct hands or anything. But I'm just looking for something. I would say even more. You act
like he's got like J.P. Pruitt's hands or something.
I would say even more than like John Leguizamo as Clown in Spawn.
Right.
There's moments where you can be like, oh, okay, I can hear John Leguizamo.
Clown at least sounds like John Leguizamo most of the time. Like, you hear the voice and like you get the inflections and stuff from Leguizamo. With Colin Farrell's the Penguin, like there's just nothing.
It's like you said. If someone told you, oh, we're going to do Colin Farrell as the Penguin, your first thought is, okay, that's kind of a different take. What are you going to do with that? But it's like, no. Colin Farrell is the Penguin. We are going to make him the Penguin. He's got this bloated face with the deep scars with a lot of character, and it doesn't look like a prosthetics. It looks like a large, rotund gentleman.
It looks realistic. It looks like he's... Like, at no point looking at him even are you just like, oh yeah, that's all prosthetics. Like, genuinely, honestly, they could have put anyone's name next to Penguin, and I would have been like, sure. Like, I don't know who that is, but like, awesome. But like, genuinely, honestly, there's just nothing. Like, there's never... And like I said, I don't take this as a bad thing. I mean, this is a very good thing. But like, just genuinely, honestly... Even the eyes, like watching the eyes, I was like, it doesn't even look like Colin Farrell's eyes. Yeah. And I've stared deeply into Colin Farrell's eyes many a time watching his films, and it's just not there. So I got to give it to him, just because if there's any performance in this movie where I feel like somebody is just like really going for it, it's him. And like I said, I can only hope we get more of that character.
I hope so. I don't know what the future is for this franchise. I assume there's going to be sequels. I hope there are, because I really like it. And his role in this movie is interesting because he's a villain. I want to say he's inconsequential to the plot. He's got his moments that matter, but he's not the main villain, the main driving force. He pops up occasionally. If this wasn't a Batman themed movie, he would just be one of the, main boss man's right-hand man. He would be Wade from The Losers, to use a recent example from our show. But because it's Batman, because we know Penguin is, and we know like this guy means something. He's going to matter. He's going to rise up. And I hope we get more and more movies in this universe, and he's never the central villain. I hope he's always someone in the background, always kind of a thorn in Batman's side. And because go ahead and say one of the strengths of this movie is it is comic booky as hell, but not in the ways you expect. Like, it's not cartoonish. It's not Batman and Robin comic booky. It is the way stories play out in comics. I could see him as a recurring character. Like, I love that he's introduced here, but he's not the main villain, but he's also not a cameo. Like, he's just a character that exists in this world, just like Catwoman is, and the other characters we meet here. And yeah, I would love more movies with him. And he doesn't ever need to be the main villain to me. It's cool if he is. It's cool if he's not. I just like that he's a character that exists in this world.
Right. He could definitely become a more prominent character, but like, I think some of the best Penguin stories are where he's just like that kind of corrupt dude that runs the Iceberg Lounge. Like, Batman beats him up to get information, or whoever there. Like, he never needs to be the main guy, but there's definitely tons of it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could do Court of Owls, you could do Nightfall, you could do anything and still feature the Penguin as a prominent secondary character. And like I said, it's a It's great. I cannot say enough good things about it. And this whole movie is just full of really great performances, but that one in particular, just like I said, blows me away.
I think it's a great pick. It's not who I'm choosing, but I'm glad you did because Colin Farrell deserves tons of praise for that performance. My Mark Strong Award is going to Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle / Catwoman.
Great move.
And we have a tendency to, when we talk about superhero movies, especially someone like Batman, who's had so many interpretations, to immediately start like ranking these characters. Well, where does Robert Pattinson rank amongst all the Batman? And that's, forgive me, but one of the least interesting ways to talk about these movies because they're all distinct and they're their own thing. That being said, I'm going to do a little bit. I'm going to say this is probably easily actually my favorite Catwoman since Michelle Pfeiffer. And I can't even compare it to Michelle Pfeiffer because they're such different Catwomen, but I love Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, and in this universe, I couldn't picture anyone else as Catwoman now. I think she nails this version of Catwoman. It is very comic booky. It is like Hush era Batman Catwoman when she first gets like her black bodysuit. And I think she's just got so much confidence. I'm not sure off the top of my head how old Zoe Kravitz is, but I know she's pretty young. But she seems to have just all the confidence in the world in this character. And just, she says it multiple times to Batman, she can take care of herself. And she proves that she can. And she's handling stuff on her own. She finds the killer of her friend's, her friend's killer, like on her own, captures him and everything. I mean, she's doing her own thing. And at the end goes off to do her own thing. And it is, like I said, instantly believable. I think she's awesome. I think she's badass. I think she's respectfully very attractive in a Catwoman kind of way. And perfect performance as Catwoman. I love it.
A perfect performance.
I hate myself for missing that.
You ran right past that. I was like,
oh, what a catastrophe that I could not think of that
fun. But no, I actually agree. She's very great. There's a lot of confidence. She feels very natural in the role. Like, that's actually, I think, one of my favorite things. Almost everybody in this movie, nobody feels like they're adjusting to playing the character. Everybody in this movie kind of feels like they've been doing it for years. They all feel like they've been playing these characters for a long time. And what's one of the things I like most about this movie, by and large, is that we're dropped into the world. We don't spend all this time building the world. We don't spend all this time there. Like, we drop in. He's been Batman for 2 years, and all of these things are just in place. Penguin, the Iceberg Lounge is there, and Penguin's already a guy that hangs out there. Catwoman is already a woman that works at the Iceberg Lounge and does her own thing. Batman's already a thing. Like, all these things are already in place. And I always like when they do that, because there's a tendency to do the opposite, over explain it to the point. But here,
well,
especially
one thing I'm gonna go back to a lot is how comic booky this movie is. And that's the thing. It's like, Batman's been going on 85 plus years. If you want to start reading Batman, just pick up an issue and start reading it. And it feels like this. It feels like jumping into a fully formed world. And this movie gave me that feeling.
Exactly. You're not having to catch up with everything. They're not holding your hand, but you're given enough information to figure everything out. And it's a great balance. But her performance is great. She's got the chemistry of Batman. She's got the place in the world. She, like I said, just feels so natural as the character. It just feels very confident, very, very comfortable. I think that's really how I describe it. It just feels comfortable as the character. Yeah. Like, there's no she stands straight up to Batman. She's not intimidated by Batman. And you get all of those different facets. You get a genuine kind of, the will they, won't they with Batman and Catwoman for the first time in a really long time. I don't think we've gotten that in a live action film. We get a little bit in Dark Knight Rises, I guess. But then they're just kind of together at the end. Surprise. But with this one, I don't know, it just feels more genuine to me. Like, it just feels like we get there. And then, she takes her exit at the end, obviously, but the doors, the cat door is always open. And swings both ways, if you will. But it's
yeah.
But yeah, I 100% agree. This is a fantastic performance, and it's just great to see Catwoman in a film portrayed as kind of on Batman's level.
I like that they are it's not beating you over the head with this is Catwoman. She's using a bunch of cat puns and saying perfect, like we were just joking about. But they're also not shying away from it. I mean, she's got a ton of cats. She's got the claws. She does have a few puns along the cat nature. But what stood out to me is that they convey her Catwomanness, if you will, through her movement and her grace. Dude, that first shot where Batman is spying on her and she changes into her Catwoman gear. And I've got to shout out friend of the show, my wife, really quick, because she's super appreciated when she's changing. You see her in her underwear and it's not lingerie. It's not super sexified. Right. He's spying on her and it doesn't come off creepy in any way. It just sounds like him doing detective work. And she has long white underwear, like very normal, practical underwear on. And that might have been my wife's biggest takeaway. She really loved that, how practical she was. And she wore like high heels during her job. Whenever she's kicking butt as Catwoman, it's a lot more practical attire. And that's always nice to see. But what I want to say about the scene is whenever she leaves to the fire escape and she just jumps down, she hops over the rail, drops down, grabs onto the ladder to break her fall, then drops to the ground silently, and then walks down an alley. Just these boom, 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 and then she's gone. Boom. Yeah. Perfect. It didn't feel like supernatural, but it just felt like like I said, someone that moves extremely gracefully through this world. And chef's kiss. I love it. Mark Strong Award winner Zoe Kravitz.
Fantastic pick.
Let's talk about our Batboy, Robert Pattinson. You know he was in this movie, Andrew?
I had heard some things.
Yeah, people like to talk about this. I mean, people talk about every person who gets cast as Batman, but Robert Pattinson in particular was a big talking point, and it probably didn't help that this movie got delayed with the pandemic. So the casting news was news for a long time, years really, and the movie's finally here. But now we get to see his performance and judge it, and inevitably the internet's going to rank him against all the other Batmen. But I'm going to come here right now and say he's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. And you know, I'm just going to say this. Hashtag PP, guys. Twilight was a long time ago. We as a society, but more importantly, Robert Pattinson as a person moved on. And I'll go you guys one further. There's nobody out there that probably detests Twilight more than Robert Pattinson at this point. He's heard all your jokes. He's heard it all. He knows it all. We all have heard them. They're very clever. Bravo. But the world keeps spinning. Robert Pattinson has done a lot of spent a long time doing like indie films, like A24 stuff, like Good Time. That other one with Willem Dafoe, The Lighthouse. A lot of stuff like that, where he's doing weird, against the grain type stuff, really kind of digging into the art side of it. And he really, he showed that there's chops here. There's ability here. There's a genuinely great actor that Robert Pattinson is. And I think when they picked him, obviously I'd seen the more recent stuff, so I never had an issue with it. I didn't think it was very strange. But of course, obviously the Twilight jokes came a-flowing. But I certainly hope that people after watching this understand and realize that this guy's got some range and got some ability. And I think he does not necessarily a take on Batman that we haven't necessarily seen before, but still unique to this universe in its own way. Obviously he's playing the kind of very, like, obviously this is the stoic, we're not quite day one Batman. This is year 2 Batman or year 3 Batman. Not a lot of differentiation between Bruce Wayne and Batman in this version. The Bruce Wayne is kind of just as stoic and brooding as Batman is. Yeah,
it's Batman without a suit on. Yeah.
Yeah, really for the most part. And obviously, they kind of play more with like the Batman obsession piece of it. Just like Batman has consumed him at this point. There really is no differentiation. There is no public face for Bruce Wayne at this point. Is that something we'll grow to get? Maybe, maybe not, but it's not something that I necessarily think hurts the film in any way. And I think, like I said, I think he's doing a great job here. I think he has a very particular way that he's playing this, especially with the story they're telling. I think it works very well, and I think his performance fits in quite well with that. And I hope that we get more of him as Batman. I'll say it. Bring it on, folks.
Yeah, I agree. I will absolutely watch Robert Pattinson as Batman again. I hope he comes back. Does a great job. Fantastic. Like Twilight was a long time ago. Let it go. Kristen Stewart has also moved on. Check her out as Princess
Yes.
Diana and Spencer. Very good. It's kind of hard to talk about his performance and kind of separate it from the Batman of it all. And I don't want to
Mhm.
like make this sound like backhanded compliments, but like the suit is doing a lot of work. Not to take away from him. He's controlling that suit, but like Batman has a presence in this movie. I love his footsteps. That was one of the first things that stood out to me. The sound
There's a
design.
presence.
Every
Yeah.
time he walks, it's you can. For me, it was like you can hear that he's like armored, like he's not he's more than a man, not in a supernatural way, but he's armed to the teeth, but still agile. I couldn't quite put my finger on what I liked about it so much. And then again, shout out friend of the show, my wife. She says it sounds like Spurs, and that's exactly it. He's a gunslinger in Gotham.
You know he's
right?
coming before he's there, and there's
Yes,
it's that tension that comes with it. Like it's like there's a lot of scenes in this movie, not a lot, but they use it effectively. But like it's the shadow and it's darkness, and you know Batman is there. And then you hear the footsteps, and then again you get a good sound of the footsteps, and then Batman appears, and it's this perfect like crescendo of the whole experience of like, you know, what is Batman? It's darkness, then it's knowing he's there, and then it's seeing he's there. And it's this perfect it's done perfectly. I love it. It's fantastic.
so
And that's
good.
a great way to describe it. The Spurs is a good analogy there.
I love the suit. It's very, it's very Arkham. I've talked about these games a lot. It's cool to see these games, as much as they were influenced by the stuff that came before it, have absolutely influenced Batman media to come after it. And he's not as huge and bulking as those games, but the way the suit is made up of like metal plates that slide together reminds me very much of the Arkham games. And the cape is awesome. The cape is comic booky as hell. I think it just looks absolutely perfect. Now, his bat symbol. There's a lot to unpack here. First, every version of Batman, every new interpretation has to have its own spin on the bat symbol, right? There's almost not like a classic bat logo because it changes all the time. So you've got your yellow oval from the 90s. You've got your Nolan, who very straight lined bat symbol. And you've got Affleck that really just lifted it from The Dark Knight Returns. And then this logo is very bold take. It's a bat without a head, which I think is interesting.
Yep.
But it fits the tone of this movie perfectly. And ever since we first saw the shot of Batman and we saw that logo on his chest, it was a big talking point. And it looks distinct. It's distinctly like metal. There was a big fan theory that the symbol is made from the gun that killed his parents, which I think is kind of cool. It's not really explored in this movie. That might be the case. But something that I never heard predicted and that I never thought of until the movie reveals it like 2.5 hours into the movie is that it's literally a batarang just set into his chest.
Yep.
He pulls it out and uses it and sticks it right back.
Yep. I thought that was awesome.
Fantastic.
And I was kind of like, I was genuinely like, because like my friend was kind of like, my friend that I saw the movie with, he kind of, he's like, does he use that? Like, I'm like, he only uses it the 2 times. Like he uses it to like cut his way into a crime scene, and then he uses it to like cut the sparking wire at the end. But I was like, I thought that was awesome. I thought that was like a genuinely like, because I didn't see it coming. You assume it's the symbol the whole movie, and then bam, you were wrong. But I genuinely liked the suit. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about the suit because like I saw the pictures and like, but like in action, I thought it looked really good. I thought it had, and I mean, I'm like I said, I'm all on board.
This movie, more than any other Batman iteration, embraced the makeup around the eyes. It's always there in the live action movies. You can see they have black makeup on their eyelids, but it's never. It's like a dirty little secret. Like you don't talk about it. Right. You never show Bruce Wayne putting it on. In this movie, they explicitly show him not only putting it on, but in the Batcave, and he takes the cowl off, and it's like smeared across his face. Fantastic. I'm glad they just embraced it.
It's not Batman Returns where he goes to pull his mask off right at the end and suddenly the eye makeup's magically gone. But yeah, I liked that you didn't shy away from it because there's definitely some hints here that this is not necessarily like a proto Batman, but there's still things that are rough around the edges, and that's definitely something that they run with a little bit. And yeah, people are going to make the emo comparison all they want, but that's kind of, Batman's certainly like that sometimes. And I think Pattinson leans into that really well here. And I think it's very effective. I like it a lot.
Well, let's talk about our main villain of this movie, played by Paul Dano. Of course, he is the Riddler. And his real name is revealed to be Edward Nashton, a slight play on the name we normally get for him. But hey, it's the Riddler, and it is certainly a new take on the character.
Yes,
but it's not so crazy that I think it's like I don't recognize this as the Riddler.
Right,
he's still committing crimes, leaving clues behind, challenging the Batman and everyone else. You have to be an intellectual genius to understand my plight and my goals. It's extremely narcissistic. It's the Riddler.
Yeah, I obviously I saw the pictures of his suit with the winter tactical mask, because they kind of explain it in the film with the field jacket, and I was like, I'm not even gonna lie, not hashtag PP, but I was definitely like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
what is this?
yeah.
Like, come on, like. You don't got to give me the bowler hat, but come on, what are you doing to my boy here? Like, what are you doing? But the movie actually kind of builds kind of a reason he looks like that, because the big Riddler plot at the end revolves around a variety of lookalikes. And so by giving him a look that people can duplicate relatively easily, it gave some credence to why he would appear that way. Obviously, we've left the door open for different looks down the line, however you want. But overall, that, like, when I got to the end, I was like, oh, all right, I get it. I was like, I get it now. I was like, I understand. And like you said, it never takes you out of the movie. It definitely feels, it's one of the things in the movie where I was definitely kind of like, all right, I get it. But
how about his reveal too in that first murder scene, straight out of a horror movie?
Oh yeah, just like magically, shows up behind the guy and just brutalizes him. And then but yeah, that first, because that's actually like the first scene of the movie, is like you see Riddler before you see Batman. Is that right?
Yeah.
I remember that correctly? Yes. All right. So I because I saw that intro scene and I thought it was a flashback for a while. Like I thought we were looking at like young Bruce Wayne about to go out on Halloween.
I think that was very intentional. Yeah.
And like you think that's what's going to happen, and then suddenly they're like, "Oh no! This is the mayor." I was like, "Oh, all right." And then you're like, and just even Bruce Wayne as a kid, I'm just like, well, wait, who's spying on Bruce Wayne as a kid in his house? Like I was confused, and then we find out it's the Riddler, and I was like, oh, all right, here we go. All right, I see you. I see what you're doing here. But yeah, overall, I really liked it. I thought it was a really great performance. I mean, if you feel that you hadn't gotten a cinematic Riddler that was up to the character's potential, I think you'll be satisfied overall with what you get here, especially once we get some sequences of Riddler and Batman kind of talking to each other. I thought that was actually a particularly great scene.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about more of that later, but yeah, I was a little hesitant going in based off the look, but I think by and large, from a personality perspective, you're definitely getting the Riddler. I mean, even when he's making his weird addresses and his weird costume, he's definitely sounds and acts like I would assume the Riddler would. Like you said, a lot of narcissism, a lot of holier than thou attitude. I get it. None of the rest of you do. And then ultimately, when he is revealed, you get, I could definitely see him doing a more classic look down the line. But overall, yeah, I really liked it. They say that Paul Dano dedicated pretty heavily to it, like had ideas for the character. Said he went to kind of a dark place with it. I don't know. Anytime some actor is like, I couldn't sleep with how I was playing this character, I was like, that doesn't sound healthy to me, but
thank you for your art and your sacrifice for our entertainment. Yeah, I think he does a great job, though. I mean, it's obviously serial killer inspired. I think Matt Reeves has come out and said that. Dano's come out and said that.
This is Zodiac.
Yes.
There's no real there's no real illusions there. The ciphers, the look, the logos, everything.
Yes.
They're drawing a clear line between the two.
Yeah, and his video messages and his weird speaking pattern. I mean, I think there's probably some other characters, some other real life serial killer inspiration baked into that as well. And that's one of the things, before the movie came out, where I'm like, where are they going with this? Batman tracking down like legit serial killers. Like, I don't know if this is really where I want Batman to go, but seeing it all together, all the pieces together, I think it works fantastic. Paul Dano was always awesome. I think it's I first saw him in Little Miss Sunshine, so I always go back to that when I see him.
Yeah.
And he kind of still has those boyish round features, and it's I'm gonna try to avoid spoilers for the movie Prisoners, but let's just say Paul Dano was also cast in that movie because he is believable to be a serial killer. You look at him and you say he's a serial killer, and you go, "Oh, I can see that." So
yeah, there's never a question.
Yes,
something about giving somebody clear white plastic glasses really doesn't help anything.
Very unsettling.
I just see that, and suddenly I'm like, yeah, somebody's buried in your backyard.
Excellent job. How about our James Gordon here? Played by Jeffrey Wright. This it's dude, it's so good. I got #PB. I was a little worried about this casting because I wasn't Jeffrey Wright's biggest fan before this movie. I know him from the Daniel Craig James Bond movies. I recently saw him in, what's that? Greatest actor of all time, Source Code. He's in Source Code. And to me, I'm not sure how old this man is, but in the movies I've seen him in, he looks like, maybe his late 40s, but he always talks like he's like freaking Donald Glover in Lethal Weapon. Like, I'm too old for this and all grizzled, but
Danny Glover.
Donald Glover is Uncle Aaron. I'm sorry.
I was very confused on where you were taking that. I was like, Donald Glover. Wait, no, he's young.
Bonus episodes are unedited. That is staying in. He Danny Glover. Thank you. Anyway, he had like this old like gravelly voice, but he doesn't look. It never fit to me. It always felt like he was putting on a voice, much like Will Arnett, who I always feel like. That's not how you really talk.
You can't seriously talk like that.
But when he does it, it comes across as funny. But Jeffrey Wright's always trying to play it straight, and I can never take him seriously. Well, I don't know if like his age, his face is caught up to his voice, but it all comes together here. He's of course he's Gordon, so he's like the uncorruptible cop, the consummate good guy in the face of rising evil. It kind of reminds me of like No Country for Old Men in that way, right?
Yeah. And
he is shocked by the things that he sees, but never breaks, and is always like, my God, that's like he's in that zone the entire time. And I think he pulls it off. He wears the Gordon mustache perfectly. Excellent job as James Gordon. I think I called him Commissioner Gordon. I don't think he's commissioner yet, but you get the idea.
He's not commissioner yet. The commissioner dies in this movie, and you gotta wonder who might replace him. But no, I agree. I do not share you and I diverge on Jeffrey Wright quite heavily. But I always thought this was a really good casting. I thought he was a great pick for the character. And I mean, if you're gonna pick somebody that, this is probably the moment to pick somebody who kind of has the Danny Glover Lethal Weapon mindset, because that's kind of how Commissioner Gordon is sometimes, where he's just like, jeez. But with this one, I think it's really good. Like, obviously we're getting, I think to Wright's credit, I think he's like 56 now, so he's not super young anymore. But I think it's a great balance here. Obviously you've got Gordon, Gordon is one of the only people Batman trusts, but Gordon is one of the only cops that really has a relationship with Batman, and most of them don't like him. Like, Gordon brings Batman into like crime scenes and is showing him evidence, and other cops by and large are just like, what are you doing? What the heck? What's going on? Like, why are you doing this? Like, who that is. What's going on? And so he's kind of sticking his neck out for Batman, and ends up kind of working alongside him to kind of crack the mystery and figure it all out. But I loved everything about it. I thought this was a great performance. I thought it was another great addition to our list of Commissioner Gordons. And I hope there was talk of a spin-off series focused on the GCPD, and I can only again hope that you're going to get Jeffrey Wright to lead that.
Andrew, I did not know about this next casting we're going to talk about, but I was so happy when John Turturro walked onto my screen.
I'd missed that one too.
He had that unmistakable voice that was, as soon as he talked, I'm like, that is perfect. That is a fantastic old grizzled crime boss that's on his way out. Like, that is, the man has seen some stuff. He's done some stuff. He's got a black hole where his soul should be. That is John Turturro, and as Carmine Falcone, and it was
fantastic.
It was so good. I was just like, of course,
good.
That's John Turturro. It's so good. And he doesn't have, I mean, not a ton of screen time. There's a lot of characters here, but he's got his scenes. He's got his moments. He gets to,
and he's great.
Go face to face with Bruce Wayne, face to face with Batman, face to face with Selina Kyle, and he absolutely crushes it as only John Turturro can do. Andrew, you and I recently talked. I rewatched a Secret Window recently, which is underrated Johnny Depp movie, underrated Stephen King adaptation. We were both agreeing on all that, and we both agreed as we're discussing it, like, John Turturro himself is a very underrated character actor. Just always crushes it.
People forget that, like, you know, a lot of people think John Turturro and they think, I don't know, they think Big Lebowski, they think stuff like that, or like, you know, or even, what am I thinking of?
Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, or Barton Fink or stuff like that, where he's playing these like wacky characters in these ridiculous situations. And people forget that dude can, like, not just play it straight, but like really well. Like in this movie, like, he's got the right mix of everything. Because, like, he's like speaking very clearly, but like there's this like menace underneath it. Just this like
100%.
This like inherent, like, you know, this is a guy that if you do cross him, you're done for. That's like, you can sense it just in the way that he talks and the way he's like, again, you talk about like confidence within characters, and it's not necessarily his performance that's confident, but he just plays Falcone as this confident person. Like, he doesn't fear anything, even up until the end. Like, nothing phases him because he's like, I own everything. Why would it bother me? And like I said, Turturro plays it so well. Like, I'm sure I read somewhere that he was probably cast months ago, but I'd completely forgotten. And when he showed up, I was like, that's awesome. I was like, this is fantastic.
So good. Now, here's some strange casting. Alfred Pennyworth. I mean, that is one of the biggest Batman characters there are. Everyone knows Batman's butler, Alfred. He's so prominent. He's always there with him. But to play the role in this movie, they cast the director of Venom 2, which I thought was just so random. Why would they cast that guy?
I have no idea. It's such a strange choice to go after.
To be an actor?
You're getting like the guy who directed it to star as Alfred? That's just a very, very strange choice.
The man's name is Andy Serkis. He's done some acting before. He played a troll-like figure in the Lord of the Rings movies. I think he played a monkey in Matt Reeves' previous movies. So quite a stretch for him to play, let me check my notes here, a human.
Man. Oh, good bit.
Good bit. Moving on. We also got, no, I'm just kidding. He does a great job. No. Awesome job as Alfred. And it's again, like we were saying earlier, they just drop us into this movie, right? I mean, they just drop us into the relationship that he has with Bruce Wayne. I mean, Andrew, there's not a single shot in this movie of Bruce Wayne's parents getting killed. How cool is that?
Thank Christ. Like, every moment until those credits rolled, I was like, don't you dare flash back and show it to me. Do not do it. I'm so close. Don't do this to me.
That should have been the post-credit scene just to piss you off. You sit there and wait through it all, and it's just bang, bang.
And then the pearls have to hit the floor. It has to be the 1-2 shot of them dying, and then the pearls like hitting the floor / getting snatched. It's the combination of the two just just triggers me immensely, and it's terrible. And like, but yeah, I was just like, don't, no. And like, anytime they like mentioned his parents dying, I was like, don't do it, and they didn't. And I was like, yes. It's like I finally got a movie where I do not have to watch his parents die.
They just focus on Alfred's relationship with Bruce, which is kind of a little strained in the beginning. I mean,
yes, it's definitely
Bruce is very dismissive. He straight up says, "You're not my dad." I mean, he's looking at Alfred as someone that can help him out in his mission, but not as a family member, not as someone that he loves, like on a personal level in this movie. And Alfred, always willing to help, and he takes those hits on the chin as Bruce, I'm really mixing some metaphors here. He takes his lumps as Bruce beats him up with his words. But
right.
I like their dynamic. And then I guess we won't get into the big thing with Alfred yet, but his performance is extremely effective. Andy Serkis is a legitimate good actor, even when you can see his face.
Yeah, no, I agree. Obviously, people, Andy Serkis is known the world for his motion capture stuff, and that's the stuff that people tend to focus on. But here lately, he's been getting out, not just directing Venom 2 of all things, but even with his stuff in the MCU, things like that, he started popping up in live action roles here and there, and obviously has a relationship with Matt Reeves. I'm sure that had a factor in him playing a part here. But yeah, like you said, I think he does a great take on Alfred, another great addition to the Hall of Alfreds. But they do play it differently here. They play a lot of things about the origin a little bit differently here, which didn't bother me at all, just because you've seen the classic version of it so many times now. I was fine with a few modifications for the sake of the story we were telling in this film. But like you said, it starts off and it's really strained. Like Alfred just kind of sees that being Batman is just like tearing him apart. And that's not something they've definitely, like Michael Caine did that with Christian Bale's Batman movies too. There was definitely moments where, especially as you got towards the end, where Alfred was like, how are you going to keep doing this? Like, you can't, this is eventually going to kill you. And with here, it's very much similar. Like, Alfred just sees what Bruce is doing to him, and he's trying so hard to try to keep some of him in the light, as it were, like not just let him be consumed by it. And I just thought that that was a really interesting way to take it. I think that was a good way to create a new kind of dynamic that still has some of the hallmarks of the classic stuff, but doesn't make it the exact same thing. And then Alfred kind of just like deciding he's going to help. Like Bruce, I don't think ever asks for Alfred to help him. Alfred just decides he's going to help him. He's just like, well, I took the liberty of solving this cipher for you. And just ends up helping him. And it's like you said, it's just because he's like, well, I can help you, so I'm going to help you. And you can just kind of deal with that. And yeah, I was a huge fan of that.
Andrew, if I were to tell you that the role of Alfred Pennyworth has a better track record in casting than Bruce Wayne, would that be a hot take?
No. We've not had a bad Alfred.
Yeah. We've not only not had a bad one, but they've all been pretty damn good. They've all been like great.
Yes. They always, yeah. And there's like, you can talk about the Michael Goff. He's got movies where he doesn't have a whole lot to do, but when he gets something to do, he crushes it. And, through Michael Caine, Jeremy Irons here, Alfred's always great. If it's the one thing they do nail, it's getting the right kind of presence they need for Alfred. And this movie is no exception.
Look, on this podcast, let me think here. Off the top of my head, we've given Alfred has gotten 2 Mark Strong awards. I gave Bruce Wayne, I gave Ben Affleck one. I think we've only got one Batman. Did Batman Forever, Batman and Robin? No, Batman and Robin, he did not get a Mark Strong. No, I think it's just the one. I think it's 2-1 Mark Strong awards, Alfred versus Batman. So,
yes.
Look, that's science right there.
Those are the facts, folks.
All right. Andrew, it's time to talk about the scenes in this movie, specifically our favorite scenes and the best scenes. And boy, is there a lot to talk about. This movie has a very long runtime. Again, let's go back to me 24 hours ago going into this movie. Some things I was worried about. 3-hour movies, man. They can be great. Sometimes those runtimes are justified, and I get it. And normally it's like, your Infinity War Endgames, like you're wrapping up 20 plus movies or whatever, or a third movie in a trilogy. But very first movie in a franchise, you go on 3 hours. It had me a little worried, especially with the sort of dark nature where you're worried about, like, it's just gonna be like a bloodbath for 3 hours, like, or it's gonna be excessive flashbacks and seeing his parents die again. Like, how are they gonna justify these 3 hours? This did not feel like a 3 hour movie to me, which is a good sign. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that, and it's weird because, like, I definitely, like, watching it, I was like, I know this movie is not short, but it never feels like you're watching a 3 hour movie. It's a movie that, like, it's very, I don't quite know how to quantify it, because, like, I was very aware that it was 3 hours, but it somehow still didn't feel like it was 3 hours. Like, this is a dense movie. A lot goes on, and I think you're aware of that as you're watching it, but the pacing, it all works to the point that it never, like, drags. It never feels like you're kind of just waiting for the next thing. It's, we're moving through the story at kind of a breakneck pace at times. And yeah, I think it works really well. Because
there's not that moment where you're like, oh, this is where it should have ended, and now we have a big epilogue or an extra act that shouldn't be there. Andrew,
exactly.
Let's just jump right into it. What is the best scene in the Batman? When is this movie firing on all cylinders, or at the very least, what was your favorite scene, Andrew?
It's a specific moment where just like I felt kind of like a kid watching it again, and it's when it's near the end of the film. The damn walls have broken. Riddler's master plan is finally come into effect. The city is flooding. Everybody's panicking, and there is a bunch of Riddler's kind of inspired henchmen that are waiting to assassinate the mayor-elect, essentially, and basically destroy the city. That's what Riddler wants. He wants to basically plunge this city into, like, eternal chaos. And right as it feels like everything is lost, it's coming, but yet for some reason, when Batman just, like, blows the roof off of the place and just lands right on top of these guys and starts kicking the crap out of them, I was just literally like, yes! Like, I just, like, I was like, that just felt like a kid watching it again, where just, like, Batman shows up to save the day, and, like, nothing else in that moment mattered. And I was just like, yes. I was like, it's that feeling, and it's that, I don't feel that as much anymore, and that always makes me sad sometimes. But, like, just that moment of, like, Batman is here, and Batman is going to save the day. And they built to that moment perfectly. The tension is there. The fear is there. Because the way they reveal that Riddler has, like, flooded the city, I wasn't sure if, like, it was actually happening or not.
Yes. Yeah, same.
Like, it was very much done in such a way where I'm like, are we watching what will hypothetically happen, or are we watching it actually happen? And
there's a video of him laying out his master plan, and, like, as he's explaining it, you see the images of it happening. So yeah, it makes you wonder, like, is he just visualizing the big thing he has to stop? But it's almost like Watchmen level. It's like, no, this is already happening. You're too late.
This is done. You're too late. And again, a great move. It gives the Riddler an edge where, like, now you can just be like, the Riddler was smart enough to know that, and you add this to the list of movies where the villain gets captured on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, he gives himself up, certainly.
And the idea of him being face to face with Batman in prison was definitely intended. He just intended it to go differently. But that whole sequence, that final sequence, where not just, so he saves the mayor, he beats up all these guys, Catwoman ends up helping him. He ends up realizing that he needs to not necessarily strike fear into people. He needs to he's not going to be Superman, but he needs to potentially, inspire hope in these people as well, that not just can he help it, but it can get them to a better place. So that just, from that moment towards pretty much the end of the movie, I was so happy. I was like, this is awesome. This is so fantastic. And they build it all perfectly. You get that tension, you get that, oh God. And then again, there's some lasting consequences at the end of this movie. There's stuff they're not going to be able to shake off if they keep things going. We get, like I said, we get a little bit of a no man's land type vibe coming at the end of this film. And that moment, just that specific moment, but just the larger final fight with, like, the Riddler goons with Catwoman and saving everybody, like, that was all, I was like, this is fantastic. I
like the way you put it. Like, it makes you feel like you're a kid. And it, even as much as this fight is taking place 500 feet off the ground. It's up like in the rafters, right? So we're literally like, as an audience, like looking up at Batman, like, yeah, Batman, you get him. Like, yeah, you knock him
Batman,
out.
yeah.
And like, it's Batman versus a bunch of regular people, right? And so he's going to take them all out, but he takes his hits in this movie. He gets shot a lot, never in the chin, but he gets shot up a lot, punched a lot. He takes his lumps and keeps going. And I love the bit at the end of this fight where he sees that Selina's in trouble, but he can barely stand up. So he pulls out the green stuff from Logan that he injects at the end.
Yeah.
I see him with adrenaline. He even has like
that's what it was.
A port in his suit for injecting adrenaline, which is pretty cool. He puts that in and roars back to life, and it's a pretty awesome moment. Yeah, that's a great pick. I mean, there's
so
a lot of
scenes, but
there's a lot of action in this movie, but I wouldn't say it's like action filled. It's not 3 hours of action. They choose their moments carefully, and a lot of it, like Andrew, before we started recording, we talked a little bit about like the budget of this movie, which is as much as $200 million, and the movie looks great. I'm not gonna say it looks cheap, but I'm kind of surprised. Both of us are it cost $200 million because a lot of the fights are kind of like this. They're grounded and they're fist fights, and there's a big elaborate car chase. But other than that, it feels more like $100 million picture we were kind of talking about.
Yeah, that definitely surprised me. But like I said, the movie doesn't feel cheap. I definitely don't want to like make it feel like I thought the movie doesn't look great. It definitely does, but yeah, that definitely surprised me.
Excellent pick for favorite scene. Not the one I chose. I'll let you can tell me your thoughts on my favorite scene, but my favorite scene in the movie, I'm kind of cheating because it's kind of multiple scenes. It is any time that Batman and Commissioner Gordon are at a crime scene. Batman walks in. Let me preface it by saying this. This movie's 3 hours long, and it takes its time when it needs to and when it matters. If the studio had put pressure, like, hey, get it shorter, 2 hours, cut it down, these would be the first scenes to go, and they are my favorite scenes. Batman is walking around a crime scene. He's scanning the area. He's taking in clues. There's moments where there's not even dialogue. He is just scanning the room, looking for details the cops missed, solving the riddles, and we just kind of like live in this moment. And we often, this is true of movies, of comics, a lot of Bat stories. He's the world's greatest detective. That's his nickname. That's what he's called. But it's rarely shown to us. And this movie does such a good job of showing us Batman, the detective, using his mind, solving the clues, trying to get ahead of the villain. So these scenes, there's a few of them where he walks around the crime scene and sort of soaks it all in and catches things. It's fantastic. You rarely see it portrayed this well, especially in movies, and I absolutely loved it. Most of the time, and I'm going to try to not like take shots at other Batman. I love all Batman. They're all great. But a lot of times when they try to show you the detective side, they really are just showing you like gadgets. Like the Dark Knight, him using like that gun that shoots different bullets into the brick to find the thing. I don't even know what the hell he was doing there, but it's more about the gadget than him being a detective. But this is him at a crime scene, finding clues, being a detective. I loved it.
I agree. And the same that was awesome to see. There's definitely moments where like he's, they show him like just trying to trace things through. They put, like I said, I think it was Patrick Willems mentioned that there's a scene where he pulls out a giant pile of old dusty files, and it's like it's Batman doing the work, and that's just a cool thing to finally see. So I'm going to give you a pass on not picking a single one of them. But
okay.
But yeah,
if I have to pick one, I'll just say the first one, because that feeling that hit me, that like, dude, this is awesome. He's just walking around. And what I also love about the scenes is we see his dynamic with the police force. Like, Gordon lets him in, but no other cops trust him. The commissioner gives Gordon a lot of crap for bringing him into, especially the murder of the mayor, because that's such a high profile case, and the public can't know that the police are working with the vigilante. And there's this great bit where one of the cops is like won't let him by. And then Gordon finally insists, and so he does. And he's like, "You scumbag!" And then later, that same cop meets Bruce Wayne, and he's like, "Hi!" And he like waves like he's a big Bruce Wayne fan. But yeah, you see his dynamic with the cops. They try to tell him like, "You can't touch that," and Batman never talks back to any of the other cops. He just looks at him and then continues what he's doing. Like he just blocks him out. He knows he's in a gray area. He's just there to work. It's so good.
Yep, I agree completely. Those were fantastic scenes. It was very cool to see it, and I loved all of those. The scene, like the first one with looking at the mayor's body, but just all of them. Any scene, pretty much any scene Gordon and Batman have together in this movie is just them working the case, for lack of a better way to put it, and that's just really cool to see.
And they're together a lot. One of my favorite Bat books is Batman Year One by Frank Miller. There's a lot of inspiration you see in this movie, because that book is as much about Gordon as it is about Batman. Now, this movie doesn't quite give Gordon that much to do, but he is working hand in hand with Batman. They have like parallel stories. They're working together, like legitimately solving things together. It's not just, here's a clue. Oh, Batman immediately knows the right answer and tells it to Gordon. Like, you get clues. You as an audience member could try to figure it out before the characters. And I love that. Like a lot of, not just Batman superhero movies, but just movies in general, when it's about detective work and solving clues, the hero just always just knows the right answer right away. And that's fine. But that's not detective work. Seeing them like work their way through it again together. Sometimes Gordon figures it out. Sometimes Batman figures it out. Sometimes they're ahead of the villain. Sometimes they're behind the villain. Like it's so good. Such a good depiction of detective work.
Yeah, fantastic. I definitely loved that aspect of it.
I was sold pretty early on in this movie. I mean, the first Batman scene, it takes its time showing you Batman, but it builds up the anticipation so well. We got the Riddler, we got the kill, and then we have Batman doing a voiceover, which we learn later is his journal that he keeps at the end of each night of patrol. He writes down the events of the night. He actually watches it back because he has a camera on his contact lens that records everything. It's cool seeing like this is a grounded Batman, but hey, we'll also have the cool fun gadgets like a camera, contact lens. I thought that was a pretty cool little touch. But we see a bunch of criminals across Gotham on Halloween night, and we know they're up to no good. And they are performing various petty crime type things, whether it's theft, one guy's or beating somebody up, or
knocks over a corner store, and like other guys are just gonna harass somebody on the train or whatever.
The graffiti, and they always like look to the shadows where they see the bat symbol, and they get freaked
really
out.
Cool.
And the voiceover, I mean, we are minutes into the movie, and it is like nailing what Batman is all about. He says, and I guess we should address real quick too, like the Bat voice is very good. That's something I should have given Robert Pattinson credit for back when we talked about it. I know not everyone likes Christian Bale's thing. I had no problem with it, but he very smartly, Robert Pattinson, did something different because, Christian Bale was all about intimidating and gravelly, right? And Robert Pattinson is more like a hushed, almost like noir, like the fact that I'm so calm should scare you. And so his voiceover, I love a few lines here, like, I can't be everywhere, but they don't know where I am. So even though he can't stop all of them, they always think he could be right around the corner. He could be in that shadow right there. And this line is so good. They think I'm in the shadows. They don't know I am the shadows. That's Batman. That's 2 lines right there in the beginning. That is his mission. That is his goal, right? He's not a man. He's a symbol. He is the knight. Awesome. Like, we got it set up. We don't need to see his parents die. We don't need to see him training for 7 years because we've seen that stuff before. Let's just get to it. Let's just be Batman. And that is such a good, because the criminals are anticipating, and we as an audience, like, okay, I want to see Batman. Oh, is he there? Is he in the shadows? We are literally wondering what the characters in the movie are wondering as they look in the shadows. And that is Matt Reeves, you sneaky guy. That was so good.
So good. Loved it a lot. That whole intro montage is just fantastic. Just the way they play with the idea of Batman as like the concept, Batman as the idea, just the looking back and forth, the looking over your shoulders, all of that was just so well done. And yeah, I thought that was really Matt Reeves, man, he friggin' nailed this. Holy hell.
Yes.
Like Jesus Christ. Like it's the perfect marriage of like the core of like the Nolan movies of like taking a Batman movie and kind of making it kind of straightforward, grounded, realistic. I hate using those terms, but injecting it with just enough comic book stuff that it feels different enough, and still feels like we're not necessarily cutting ourselves off from certain things. I know Reeves has said he doesn't want to do like Superman or something, but I could see, potentially doing something like Mr. Freeze in this universe or the Court of Owls or any of that other stuff. I feel like none of that's off the table. So
Yeah, Court of Owls, I would not be surprised at all to see in this universe. Speaking of, another thing I loved about Pattinson, I feel like maybe I shortchanged him earlier because there's a lot of like little things I like that he did. There's not like one scene I'd point to like, look, this is where he becomes Batman. Like that's undeniable. It's the little things throughout. He does some great acting with his eyes, especially as Batman. In particular, there's a scene where he's on the roof with Selena Kyle, and they see the world very differently because they've had very different upbringings. And I love how she just dismantles them right away. Like, you must have grown up rich to be this naive about the way the world actually works. He really pulls them apart. But she lists off like all these corrupt people that have been ruining the city. And she mentions Thomas and Martha Wayne, which of course are his parents. And you see Batman listening and his eyes like widen as she says that. But he can't like give it away that means something personally to him and the restraint that he has there. But there's still enough reaction in his eyes that we as an audience know that cut him real deep to hear that. Is so good. It's those little moments throughout the movie that Pattinson just really excels at.
I agree. I thought that was all expertly done.
Traditionally in the comic books or greater Batman lore, Maroni and Carmine Falcone are sort of the last of the old guard. They're the last of like the mob that's been running Gotham. And they're traditionally the first people that Batman takes down. And then after that, we get the rise of supervillains, people like Joker, Riddler, Clayface, you name it. They all come after Batman. And a big question in Batman lore is, did Batman cause this? That him becoming a symbol and being theatrical and putting on a costume, is he the reason? Did he bring this madness to Gotham City? Right. And it's a question without an answer, so something that's always there. And this movie really hits that on the head. I mean, we are seeing the last gasp of those of the old guard, and Riddler is here, and it becomes very clear in the conversation at the end that Riddler is there because of Batman. He's inspired by Batman. He thinks he gets what Batman's doing by putting on a mask and becoming vengeance and becoming something greater. And he does that in his own way by inspiring these lunatics in the city to help carry out his plan. And he thinks they're actually working together. And Andrew, he's kind of right. They kind of are. I mean, Falcone would not have been assassinated if Batman didn't follow Riddler's clues to drag him out into the light, as he says, and then get sniped. So, Riddler kind of wins in this movie. At least he sees his plan to the end.
He sees his plan to the end, but obviously not quite to the end. The final piece gets thwarted by Batman. Sure. But you're right. Yeah, when he says stuff like, we killed Falcone, like, he's not incorrect, because like you said, Falcone doesn't come outside to get sniped by the Riddler unless Batman goes to confront him. And it's all that sort of stuff that like, it's interesting because it creates an interesting dichotomy, because Riddler is by and large going after people that are corrupt. He's like, the people that he's all targeted are people that were on the take or doing their own stuff, or, all of them bad in some way. And, he included Thomas Wayne on that list. And that was how Bruce gets involved, pay for the sins of your father. But I thought that was a really interesting way to take it. And I thought that was that whole scene with Riddler and Batman talking, I thought was really good.
Dude, it's awesome.
Because it's so good. It's because not just are you getting the Batman, you're getting a Batman face to face with one of his villains, which is just always cool. But just the idea that, like, not just as Riddler wrong, but like when Batman like rebukes him, like Riddler is like heartbroken. Like Riddler is like devastated that Batman's like, not just am I not helping you, like you're unhinged. Like we are nothing alike. We're not together. Like Riddler is like, and I took that personally. Like it's like,
yeah. Don't
like
meet your heroes, like, Riddler.
Yeah, it's like he's like, no, that's not how this was supposed to go. He's like, we were supposed to be in this together, and it's a very, very good scene that I like a lot, and it definitely stuck out to me. But just fantastic work by everybody involved.
That scene at the end at Arkham when they're face to face, I would put that up there with Batman and Joker in The Dark Knight in the interrogation room. I mean, that is hero and villain coming together. And if you were to ask, like, what's great about the dynamic between these two characters? Here's a scene where we explore it fully. And oh, it's so good. There is a lot of allusions to the story, the comic story Hush in this movie. Not outright, but actually at one point it says Hush, like right across the screen. But Riddler
Did you catch why it said Hush?
Oh, go ahead. Why did it say Hush?
The journalist's name was Edward Elliot.
Oh, Thomas Elliot is the character Hush. For anybody that doesn't know, that's nice.
So Edward Elliot was the journalist that Falcone killed. So we may have ourselves a little. There may be a Thomas Elliot out there somewhere with an axe to grind against the Wayne family.
Look at that, Andrew, the detective. Very good. Yes, there's allusions to Hush. And in the story of Hush, I have slight spoilers for it. It's a great book. Go read it. Awesome art. Jim Lee, he's the best. It sort of gets praised for making the Riddler matter or be serious again. Not even again, but maybe for the first time. Because he's a character that's very old, from an older era of comic books. And his whole thing is he loves leaving riddles. He does crimes. He leaves riddles. That's the end. That's his gimmick. That's the Riddler. And that's all he was for a very long time. And Hush reveals in the end that he's the mastermind of this whole great long plan that plays out over the course of a year in the comic. So it is, again, praised as a Riddler, a movie that takes the Riddler seriously. And this movie is doing that for Riddler on film, I would say. I love Jim Carrey as the Riddler, but you don't watch that movie and go, oh, the Riddler's real menacing, or he's a arch nemesis of Batman in the psychological way. So this movie is sort of raising our perception of Riddler to a new level in the cinematic way. So a lot of parallels with Hush there. And at the end of the book, there is a scene where Batman talks to the Riddler at Arkham. And in the book, the Riddler knows who Bruce Wayne is, or he knows who Batman is. He knows he's Bruce Wayne, and he's holding that over him. And this movie is very much strongly implying that that's the direction we're going. Batman believes that the Riddler has figured out that he's Bruce Wayne. So whenever they go meet in Arkham, there's super high tension because it looks like the Riddler knows who he is and he's going to release it. He's going to release this video and everyone's going to know. And it's going to be, as Bruce Wayne says, the end of the Batman. And he even says his goodbyes to Gordon. He's like, "You're a good cop." And he walks out. And so as Riddler is talking and going over everything and he's taunting him, he's saying Bruce Wayne. Batman is standing back in the shadows and trying so hard not to react and not to give it away and feel him out. And it's slowly revealed that he doesn't know he's Bruce Wayne. He thinks Bruce Wayne is the one that got away from us, me and you, Batman, right? We're trying to take these people out, but Bruce Wayne got away. And as soon as Batman realizes that he doesn't know, he walks up to the glass and he starts pushing back. And that psychological back and forth, I mean, they're divided. They can't touch each other. It's not a fist fight. It's just their words and their mission, right? Riddler is laying out what he's all about, what his mission is. And Batman has to say, we're not on the same page, as you said earlier, and he falls apart. It's so good. It's everything great about the dynamic between these two characters. They absolutely nailed it. I mean, there is a action climax to this movie. It's your favorite scene in the movie, but in a lot of ways, this is the climax.
That's the climax of the film. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Batman and Riddler face to face for the first time in the movie. They don't meet for most of this film. That's literally their first one-on-one confrontation. But yeah, that scene is fantastic. There's a moment specifically because he keeps like you said, he keeps saying Bruce Wayne, and then like I forget what his exact statement is, but he suddenly like says something that's akin to not just I think you're Bruce Wayne, but we need to get Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Like that's the switch. And then like you can see the switch turn where Batman is suddenly like, "Oh, you don't know." And now I can push back. Like you said, at that moment he engages and he's like, "Boom, now I can push back against you." And it's just so well done. That scene is fantastic.
Pretty dang good, Andrew.
Good.
I might change my answer. Maybe that's my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah. It's great.
This movie's good, Andrew. This movie's really good.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you this: you caught that Elliot Easter egg? Maybe you can shed some light on this. Whenever he's at the mayor's funeral, he hears a man next to him in the pews talking about how he deserved to die. He was a scum, and they lock eyes. He's Bruce Wayne. He's not Batman because he's in public. And he looks at this guy, and then he walks away from him, and then he looks back, and that guy sort of fades into the shadow. Andrew, they make it a point to highlight this person, but I'm not sure who that is. Do you know who that is?
No. No idea.
When they were doing that, I'm like, is that Joe Chill? Is that who killed his parents? Are we going to get a flashback? Friend of the show, my wife, thinks that at the end of the movie, when he's taking out the Riddlers, or the team of Riddlers, the one that almost kills Selina, and they pull the mask off, she thinks that might be him. But I would need to see, like, I don't know, I'm sure the internet confirmed, but that might make sense too. And it's Batman seeing early on that the Riddler is spreading. His message is spreading.
And he sees that. He sees that even when he pulls up because there's people dressed as the Riddler outside. There's people with Riddler signs. So that's kind of the first, like you said, it's that moment where he's like, "Oh, I'm this. Am I the bad guy?" Like,
yes.
You know, that kind of realization of just like, am I doing more harm than good at this point? But yeah, that I would need to double check, but I think because there's no implications there or anything that it's not necessarily like a Joe Chill or even a Thomas Elliot type situation. You've got nothing to really go on there. But that would be, I know they pulled a mask off the one Riddler guy, so I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if it's the same guy, but I would absolutely need to go back and watch it again. I wasn't paying that close attention to that.
Right.
How dare I?
This dude, how bad did you have to pee by the end of this movie? I like an hour in.
I went during the scene where Selina is fighting Falcone. I was like,
really?
I'm gonna bet that Falcone comes out of this scene alive, and I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And thankfully, I got back in time before he didn't leave the next scene alive. But yeah, I had to make a judgment call. I was like, I'm either going to be uncomfortable the entire rest of this, or I need to find my moment. And thankfully,
that was me. I was uncomfortable the rest of the movie because I was like, there's got to be some fluff scene, right? Something that doesn't matter. But I was hooked. I couldn't leave.
I did miss the Selina scratch in his face, but and that's a long Halloween right there. But I like had to call my shot, and I was like, all right, I got to do it. I can't do this.
So Andrew, here is my favorite thing about this movie. Here's why I love this movie, why I will admit I was wrong in a lot of ways about where I thought they were going in this movie, or the interpretation that they're going with. And it's all about Bruce's epiphany at the end of this movie, because he again realizes that he is responsible in some ways for the rise of the Riddler, and for Riddler to spread his message across the city. And it's really distilled in the one scene where that Riddler henchman, when they ask who he is, he says, "I am vengeance." And he's not even, I don't think, trying to quote that back to Batman. I think he just also, independently of what Batman says, thinks that what he's doing is vengeance. And Bruce, again, I love when this movie takes its time with scenes. At the end, whenever the stadium is flooding, he drops down into the water, he lights a flare, and he just helps regular people get out of the area they're stuck in, and not just regular people, but the mayor-elect and the mayor's now orphaned son. And he's just grabbing these people, helping them walk across, not doing superhero things, just being a good person, being a hero, literally lending a hand to the common folk. And it's something that we hadn't seen in this movie. And it seems like it's something that Batman really wasn't doing. At the beginning of this movie, all he was focused on is, I am vengeance. I instill fear into the heart of criminals. That's my mission. That's it. Nothing else matters. And he learns throughout the course of this movie. We haven't talked about the Alfred thing yet. We'll come back to that. He learns that there's more to the mission. There has to be more to the mission. That can't be all of it. Because if he just lives in that dark place, he's just going to inspire more evil to rise, just like it happened with the Riddler. And he says, like in one of his final journal entries, that he has to also be a symbol to these people. I didn't quite say it on the nose, but he has to also be hope. He has to be a hero. He has to be a symbol. He has to know that he's out there for them, for the people. He can't just be vengeance. And that, whenever he said that, whenever he has that epiphany at the end, I was like, I was so wrong about this movie. I thought this movie was going to fetishize the violence and be like, look how awesome it is that this Batman is gritty. But it's about him learning that Batman has to be more than that. And that's, I love Batman. He's my number one favorite character. And I love him for that reason, because of the many different ways that he is represented and the things that he can represent and he can be. And it's so much more than just the brooding violence, even though it's undeniably part of it. And Bruce Wayne in this movie, comes to that same realization, and it is beautiful. And I may also write a letter to Matt Reeves and apologize for not being hyped for this movie, because I feared
not giving him his fair run. And that's actually something, I mentioned to you that I had a hot take about this movie, and I'm going to go ahead and mention it now because it kind of ties into what you said. But, even when this movie was coming out and the early reviews were coming out, people were talking about how dark it is and how violent it is and how noir it is, and like how this is such a dark, mature take on Batman. And there's this, I'm not going to say this movie's not dark, and I'm not going to say this movie's not violent, but I don't think it's nearly as dark and violent as the internet would have you believe it is. The perception of this film just seems to be so different from what it was, at least as far as when I finished watching it. I was like, even the early hype I'd heard made this feel like it was like 7 level. And I'm like, I'm not saying it doesn't have 7 illusions.
Yeah.
Like I saw like that thing I sent you where it was just like, I hesitate to say this is a Batman movie. This is more like 7 than anything. And I'm like, I got out of the movie, I was like, but it's not? Like, it's definitely got like 7 vibes, like with Riddler pulling from Zodiac and things like that. But like, I got out of this movie, I'm like, it's violent, but I don't think it's any more or less violent than something like Dark Knight or Batman versus Superman. I don't think it's
not. I'm not looking away from the screen
really,
because there's gore. Yeah,
like even that first trailer where it feels like he beats down that dude for like 30 seconds. Even in the final movie, that's played so much looser, and like he doesn't beat him down nearly as long. In the trailer, it sounds like he's like thunderous punches, but in the movie, it's a little bit more effective tactical punches. And it just, I was kind of that, and I'm not saying, like I said, I will not say the movie's not dark, and I won't say it's not violent, but like, I was led to believe that it was going to be so much more than it was. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm saying it is a good thing. Like, I think the movie is hugely effective, exactly like it is. It doesn't need to be R-rated. Like, there's, like you said, you mentioned that people want things to be rated R. And I'm like, all that really means is that there can be naked people in it, and they're going to swear a lot. And there's more gore. And Batman doesn't need any of those things. Batman's never historically had any of those things. So it's always weird to me when people are like, oh, we're not going to get a real Batman then. I'm like, you've gotten a real Batman in a PG-13 movie a bunch of times already. It's completely effective. But yeah, I was kind of happy to come out. Like you said, it's a rebuke of that idea too. So it's not just as it not as violent and not as dark as I was expecting it to be. It's a movie that's like, I need to be more than that regardless. And that's just hugely effective.
There's something I'm putting together like right now, like I was talking about it. And it's that first scene where he beats down those thugs that have the Joker-esque makeup. We gotta talk about the Joker of this movie. He's beating those guys up, and he comes out of the shadows.
We're already at an hour and a half, Chris. We're gonna have to wrap this up eventually.
It's a 3-hour movie. Okay, we're probably coming to the end here because I think we're getting our overall thoughts out there. The movie's really good, but in that scene, he comes out of the shadows. You hear his boots, his spurs as he steps out, and he takes those guys out decisively. And the man that he is saving is scared of Batman.
Yep.
The man that he is saving says, "Don't hurt me," and Batman doesn't say, "I'm here to save you. It's okay." He looks at him in the scene ends, and he's just dismissive of him. He's like, "I'm here. I did my mission. I took the bad guys out, and I move on." And then you look at the Batman at the end of this movie, and he realizes what he's doing is not enough. And I've got to imagine if he were to have that moment again, he would help that man off the ground, tell him it's okay. Right. He would provide some sort of comfort to let the man know, like, I'm here for you, to protect you. Like, I'm ruling the city of evil for you. And that's what Batman learns over the course of this movie. And it's so good. Man, this movie is awesome. Like I said, I just saw this movie. I'm not going to sit here and I don't know where it falls in the greater Batman movies or whatever. But if someone told me tomorrow that The Batman is their favorite Batman movie, or they think it's the best Batman movie, I would not call that person crazy. I think it is
absolutely not.
Possibly mine when it's all said and done. Got to sit on it a while, but this movie blew me away.
I do want to give a quick shout out. We've mentioned it a few times, but the Alfred Bruce scene after Alfred is almost blown up is really great.
Andrew, yes or no? Did you think Alfred was dead?
There was a moment. I was genuinely like, "Oh God, did you actually do it?" Like when people were like, "It's gonna shake." Like, are you really going there? And then they showed him in the hospital, and I was like, "Oh, thank Christ!"
Yes. I mean, I would have if they pulled it off.
I wasn't against it. I wasn't against it, but it really was like, I was like, "Are we really going there so quickly?" No way to establish yourself as being different than axing Alfred in the first freaking movie. But yeah, that scene is very powerful. I liked it. Like I said, we get some ripples to the Wayne origin, and I don't really have a problem with that. I think that Alfred in this scene with Bruce effectively explains it and makes it work within the context of this film. And then, you mentioned the Joker of it all. Do we want to mention that?
Yeah, I mean, the last scene of this movie, it's the Riddler and the Joker in Arkham. I would say it implies it. No, it's the Riddler and Joker.
It's the Joker.
It's the Joker. He laughs. He calls himself a clown. You see majority of his face, a little bit in shadows. Dude, that Joker looks comic booky as hell. It looks right off the page.
There's apparently another scene that was shot with Barry Keoghan, who that guy is, Droog from Eternals, playing our Joker here. But there apparently was another scene where Batman is trying to crack the Riddler case, so he goes to talk to somebody he's dealt with before that's kind of also been a guy, and so that's apparently going to be this kind of proto Joker. And they cut it, and Matt Reeves has said we'll probably release it eventually, just because everything gets released now. But yeah, we get ourselves a seemingly a Joker that already kind of exists. And again, I'm kind of into that too, of just all right, don't show me the chemical plant again. I don't need to see it. Well, Dark Knight, to be fair, was kind of Joker was already a thing. Yeah. But in this case, it seems to be that Batman's already kind of fought the Joker before. And I'm kind of into that too, where again, I know what the deal is. Just drop me in and go. I don't need to see it.
I don't know about this deleted scene, but based on what you're saying, it sounds like he's not quite Joker yet. Does he not have white skin? It was hard to tell in the shadows that we could see him.
He's definitely got prosthetics, because there's somebody credited for his prosthetics in the credits, which I thought was funny.
I mean, I
actually love that Barry Keoghan is he gets top billing for this, not top, but
in the end credits,
in the name, he's 7th or 8th listed, and I'm like, dude, you're in this movie 40 seconds, But yeah, I thought so. He's definitely got something going on, and so I'm curious if the scene they shot would have revealed more of it, or if they would have kind of kept him in the shadows or whatever. But I guess we'll see.
I feel like the Nolan Batman movies put the Joker in face paint because it's grounded, realistic.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love it. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but I would love for this universe to have a bleached skin Joker.
Yeah.
Because
Full on
it is
white skin Joker.
comic booky as hell, just in interesting ways. And I think the marriage of dark, gritty, grounded, whatever word you want to use, Batman, with the visuals of the comics and some of the zaniness, that would be right up my alley. So I hope we get that. But I don't know. I'm excited for the future. I hope we get many more of these at this caliber.
They've definitely got some like I said, there's Joker, there's the Hush stuff, there's obviously the No Man's Land piece they could take with it now. There's obviously the Riddler is still there. I like that the Riddler is around. It's kind of a hallmark of comic book movies to kill your villain at the end of the movie, even if it's kind of their own doing. So Riddler is there. I like the idea that we might build out a rogues gallery. Like give us a bunch of villains at this point. So yeah, like I said, I can't say enough good things about this movie. The first thing I told Liz when I came home was like, man, I liked that so much more than I thought I was going to.
Yes.
Like I said, I never thought it was going to be bad, but I expected to kind of come out of it and be like, all right, I don't know if I'm ever going to watch that again, just because I don't know if it's the headspace that I'm in. But man, I finished that and I was kind of like, man, I might have to go back to the theaters for another round with that one.
I think I'm going to try to sneak into an IMAX. I don't mean...
I did IMAX for this one. It was...
Oh, did you? Was it awesome?
Yeah,
Do I need to see it on
awesome.
IMAX? Okay.
The sound definitely, like that, man, that theme. Just that, again, can't speak enough about that.
Have we talked about the theme? The theme is so good.
No, we haven't.
Who did the score to this movie?
Michael Giacchino.
Okay.
I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, I asked you to say his name because I didn't want to embarrass myself, so thank you.
That's fine. Look at me. I'm embarrassing anyway. But it's so... It's like literally 5 notes, and it just repeats through the whole film. They do it on brass, they do it on drums, they do it on strings, they do it on everything.
And it fires me up every time. It's so good.
It's effect. I added it to like one of my Apple playlists like last night after I got home. I was like, I need this like in my rotation. I need it.
Yes.
I need it all the time. But yeah, guys, go watch Batman.
It's awesome. When I say sneak in, I mean I have kids and it's hard to get to the theaters. I don't mean I'm going to not buy a ticket and sneak in the back.
You don't mean sneak into the theater. You mean sneak the movie into your schedule.
Exactly. I got a few thoughts to read here. Toby from the UK hopped into our Discord. We have a channel all about this movie. If you want to hop in and talk about it, there is a link in our show notes to join our Discord. And here are his fresh thoughts on the movie. The Batman, more like, damn, man, I loved it. The final 40 minutes has some weaker moments, but overall, it's everything I've wanted and more for a Batman movie. I loved the whole cast. This is my favorite portrayal of Gotham. The story was great and had an easy to follow but good mystery where it felt like a proper detective story, and that soundtrack. And then there's an emoji that I can't say out loud, I guess, but he really likes the soundtrack. He says, I think I got goosebumps when it went into hard during one scene. So good. I do like the Nolan movies more because they build up those characters so well, but this is what I've wanted for a pure comic booky while still mostly grounded Batman movie since the Burton movies. Fantastic. I think, that's exactly a great way to look at it. It's still grounded and gritty and realistic on those things, but it doesn't forget that to be comic booky as hell. A good marriage of those. I saw this movie with one of my brothers, and he was sure to text me his Mark Strong awards after he drove home and had some time to think about it. So, Dakota, he says, Mark Strong nominations in order. Robert Pattinson, the only Batman that held the same emotion even as Bruce Wayne. Even when not in costume, he was Batman. He always had his mission in mind. He wasn't some rich dude, he was still that orphan, hurting and feeling the pain of losing his parents. Riddler. Majority of the movie he was masked and in a screen on the screen. I should have proofread your text, Dakota. I'm sorry. However, his words and the way he spoke was so chilling. You didn't have to see his face to see the menacing smile that he wore. Plus, he was literally insane, thinking he and Batman were going to be partners at the end of it all. Then, as his plan crumbled, so did he. That's exactly right. I mean, when his plan...
Yeah.
When Batman rejects him and his plan doesn't quite go to fruition, he, has a meltdown.
A meltdown.
His screams in his. I mean, he talks weird the entire time, but I thought that was conveyed very well. Lastly, he says, Colin, I guess I'll have to bleep this, fucking Farrell. It's spelled phonetically. I don't believe he was in a single scene of that movie. He truly embodied that character, and even though he wasn't the main antagonist, his presence was known. Can't wait to see if he reprises that role.
Better.
Abso-freaking
better.
Dakota. Yeah, so this movie's awesome. I want to hear more of your thoughts. If you see this movie, if you love it, let us know. Email bestofthespot@gmail.com, Twitter @BOTRcast, hop into our Discord. And if you know people that saw this movie and also liked it or hyped about it and they want to keep talking about it, you know what? Send them this episode. Let us talk into their ears and share our passions about this movie. Andrew, any final thoughts? Any last word on this movie?
Watch it. Even if you were feeling skeptical about it, I want to tell you that, like, hashtag PP, but like, I cannot imagine somebody who was less hyped for this movie coming out than I was. Like, genuinely, honestly, like, this movie, every trailer I saw, every picture I saw, it felt like I was just drifting more and more away, and I was just having moments of like, am I out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong. Like, I just really felt like Batman was like moving past me. And you know, it's whatever at the end of the day. But then, like, I watched it, and man, I loved it. This Gotham just feels so much dirtier than I think the Nolan films are. It feels like a very gross, wet place. It rains all the time.
Very Seattle in that way.
Like,
I have a very specific take on that. And the Gotham in Batman Begins has a very distinct feel to it that I think is similar to this movie. It's a lot of like yellows and oranges and dingy. And the Gotham in that movie is mostly the Narrows, and it was built like on sets. So it had that dingy feel, but also you were limited by it being on a set. And then The Dark Knight, they moved to mostly Chicago, and it opens up, but it feels more like a regular metropolitan city. Yeah. So I think this movie somehow managed to be shot, I'm assuming, on location, but feel like that controlled set where you can control every aspect of it, give it that dingy feel of it.
I agree.
I know we're wrapping up, but this Batmobile is awesome. I love it. It's like
the reveal
super
is awesome.
Modern. Yeah, it's so good. Batman 89 will probably always be my favorite Batmobile, but this is like Adam Westy, but also grounded, but also comic booky because like the big jet engine in the bat. It's awesome.
Like it's got this look of like a regular car at the front, and then you go around to the back, and it's literally got like a giant like sport supercar jet engine in the back of it, and you're just like, all right, this is no regular car. This is awesome. And like that reveal is just very like, it builds to it, and it's just awesome. He rides a motorcycle for most of that first half of this film, and then the Batmobile makes its appearance because he's kind of working on it throughout the film. But yeah, Batmobile in this movie rules.
It's an awesome movie. Go see it. Let us know your thoughts. And remember, maybe not every movie is great,
but all movies have greatness, like this one. It has a lot of it.
It's so great. Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. Follow him on Instagram @NotThatMarkAnthony. Thanks to Mitch of Depressed to Impress for the music. Check him out on YouTube and Twitch.tv. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. It's the only way that we grow. And follow us on social media @BOTRcast. Thank you. Dude. I am vengeance. Boom, 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 boom.